So I came across a story from April 18th about a shooting that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where a man shot and killed two other men, execution style basically, shooting them in the back of the head in different locations. But I haven't seen anything on the mainstream liberal media about it. And usually, every time there's a shooting, all the liberal gun advocates come out about gun control. We need gun control. We got to stop people from getting guns. Why is it that we didn't hear anything about this one? Your guess is as good as mine, but watch the news clip about it, and then we're going to talk a little more.
This evening, Tulsa County prosecutors charged the man accused of murdering two innocent victims in Tulsa. They've now charged him with a hate crime. Police say Carlton Guilford shot and killed London Hathcock at the Rudisill Library and then shot James McDaniel at a Quick Trip minutes later.
News on 6's Reagan Ledbetter is live with the new details from prosecutors. Reagan.
Greg and Lori, District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler says based on the evidence, they believe Guilford shot both men because they were white. Now, Oklahoma's hate crime is called malicious intimidation or harassment, which is a misdemeanor.
The information suggests that race played a role in it. I feel like that's something that we can prove and would be something that a judge or jury obviously needs to listen to. So we'll present that information along with everything else.
Guilford is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing Hathcock and McDaniel and 2 counts of shooting with intent to kill for shooting at 2 QT employees who were not hurt. Investigators say Guilford shot both men in the head from behind. They say Guilford continued to shoot McDaniel after he was already on the ground and even reloaded his gun and shot McDaniel in the head again. Guilford is being held without bond in the Tulsa County Jail, and prosecutors say that's needed in order to keep people safe.
Whenever you're talking about a dynamic where the safety of the public is at risk, in my mind, somebody who's killing somebody or doing harm towards somebody who they don't know, that really amps things up.
The prosecutors haven't released any details about why they believe this was a hate crime. That information will come out later during the court process. Live in Tulsa, Reagan Ledbetter, Oklahoma's own News on 6.
Now, that happened on April 18th. Today is May 6th, and I just saw it today. I was on the internet looking through stories and whatnot, and I came across it. And although there was not an AR-15 involved, it was still a gun crime, a heinous gun crime. But the mainstream liberal media is not talking about it. One news channel in Oklahoma was talking about it, and I read the story. And basically, this man, he was a 61-year-old man, a black man, and he is now charged with first-degree murder after shooting and killing 2 white men. He shot one in a library in the back of the head. After he left that location, he went into a convenience store called a Quick Trip, and he shot another man in the back of the head. But after that second man fell to the ground, he allegedly reloaded his handgun and fired some more. And we haven't heard anything about it. I just don't understand. Isn't this a heinous killing, a heinous murder? Absolutely. But you don't hear any of the gun control advocates screaming about it. So basically, all they want to do is put down semi-automatic rifles when a mentally ill person takes one and commits a mass shooting. Although this may not be considered a mass shooting, it's a horrific crime that should have never happened. So what the Tulsa police are talking about is it may be race-related. I don't know that to be true. I'm only telling you what I read in the news clip. The black man shot and killed 2 separate white men in the back of the head for no reason other than they were white. That's what the police are investigating. I don't know that to be true, and I hope it's not true. But what I will say is this. After reading the story and looking at the man who has been charged, it seems to me that there may be a mental health issue involved. Just by reading it and looking at some photos. And that seems to be a bigger problem in this country. It's not gun control that we need. We need mental health counseling for people. People who are struggling to survive every day because of whatever crisis they're suffering from. But the media will not talk about that. They won't talk about why the federal government is not allocating funds to help people in need, homeless people, drug addicted people, people who may have a tendency to commit a violent crime for no other reason than they really don't know what they're doing. So now this man, the alleged shooter, is going to be charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. And it also said that he did also shoot at employees of the Quick Tip, I believe, which he'll be charged with another crime, shooting to endanger, or whatever they're calling it in Oklahoma. But this suspect is now being held at the Tulsa County Jail, awaiting a bond hearing. And it's just a shame that this happens in our country, but when it happens with a rifle, all the gun gurus are out. They're all screaming and yelling, we got to stop guns, we got to stop guns. Well, if you're going to stop guns, wouldn't you want to stop all guns? No, they don't want to do that. That's not their narrative. Their narrative is semi-automatic assault rifles, what they like to call assault rifles, should be banned because law-abiding citizens shouldn't be able to own them, which I don't understand why. I don't know anyone that has an AR-15 that rifle actually left their home by itself and committed a heinous murder. And you probably have never heard of that either. So they say it's the guns that are killing people. Yes, the gun is the weapon, it's firing the bullet, but the gun is not doing it itself. It's the person pulling the trigger, and the majority of the time, it is someone with a mental health illness going through some kind of mental health crisis that they probably needed help for, but they had no one to turn to. So shouldn't all the mainstream liberal media be preaching mental health care, mental health counseling? Why isn't the Democratic White House pushing for mental health care? Why do they insist on wanting to ban firearms? You'll never hear that. That's not the narrative that they want to push. They want to go after the NRA and all the gun advocates who believe that law-abiding citizens under the Constitution of the United States should be able to own firearms. Because a law-abiding citizen, like myself and like all of you, have the right under the Second Amendment, to own a firearm. You're responsible. You keep it locked up safely in your home. That firearm is not going out on its own in the middle of the night to shoot and kill somebody. It's people who should not have access to firearms. And it happens every day all over the United States and around the world. That people are losing their lives to someone who is intent for whatever reason on committing such a heinous crime, and the majority of them, I'll say it again, appear to be suffering from some kind of mental illness. Mental health counseling should be a number one priority for this Democratic administration in Washington, but it's not. All they want to do is punish people who can legally obtain a firearm and can legally own it and use it for whatever purpose, whether it's hunting, whether it's range shooting, whether it's whatever. They want to punish us because we obey the law. We do not commit crimes. And we choose to go purchase firearms to protect not only ourselves, but our property and our families. Because that's what the Second Amendment is for. People can bear arms for the protection of life and property. And the mainstream liberal media will not talk about it. They won't talk about this case in Tulsa. And I actually feel bad for the shooter because, again, after reading the article and watching a clip about it, he looks like he may be having some kind of mental health crisis. Now, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, but anybody who could see photos and video clips and just look at the person and say, you're just pretty sure there's something wrong with that person. So I don't know how They came to the conclusion that this may be a shooting based on race. Quite frankly, I hope it's not. But if it is, that's another tragic situation where racism in our country is again being pushed by political parties, by the split in political parties. You have one group who call everybody racist, everybody's a white supremacist, even black people or black police officers are white supremacists, and the other group is saying that's not true. Well, what is true and what's not true? The one fact here remains that mental health illness is a big problem in this country. Homelessness is a big problem, and thousands and thousands of homeless people are suffering from a mental illness or some kind of drug addiction, and the government is doing zero to combat that. They are not preaching it. They are not preaching mental health care. They're not allocating funds for it. But all they want to do is punish the law-abiding gun owner because people are taking firearms and committing murders for whatever reason. And that's absolutely wrong. Woke liberal politicians need to look into the problem, which is mental health. And until they do something about it, you're never going to stop a gun crime. Even if you do afford people of mental health counseling, you're never going to stop gun crimes. They're wrong, they're heinous, and they shouldn't happen. And unfortunately, it happens. So let's push our politicians, especially the Democrats, into allocating millions and millions of dollars for mental health counseling for every state in the country, for cities and towns where the homeless population is to a point where they don't have any place to put them anymore. That's what we need. We don't need to take firearms away from people who rightfully have the right to own them and who keep them safe and use them for sport shooting or hunting or what have you. This country is backwards. They're pushing their political agenda for the wrong reasons. Whether it's a hate crime in Oklahoma or not, it's heinous and it was wrong. And if it comes to find out that that's the truth, then that man will have to pay the price for committing murders, regardless of if it was race-based or not. He's still going to pay the price for committing 2 murders. This needs to stop. And as soon as this government decides to stop their crap with gun control, and start talking about the real problem, which is mental illness, it's never going to change. And that's it. I saw this, and it's the first time I saw it. And again, it's May 6th, and it happened in the beginning of April. Why is no one talking about this? Because chances are that it's a mental health issue, but they don't want anybody to talk about that. All they want to talk about is, let's take the guns away, and we'll stop all these crimes. And that's not a fact, and that will never happen. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the notification bell. You won't miss an episode. I hope everybody's healthy and safe. And I'll see you real soon. Have a great day.